Hi, this is John Ondo from Marketing Media and Cupcakes. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We're back after being gone for over 4.5 years. And I hope you get a chance to listen to episode 77, where we explain why we were gone for so long and that we're back for at least 3 more episodes. Angel and I are big supporters of entrepreneurship, and we love small businesses and faith-based businesses. And we just want to encourage you through our podcast each week. What's going to determine if we continue with more episodes will be the response. Subscribe to us on your platform. Send us an email at john@ondomedia.com. That would help us know you're listening and you want more episodes. So thank you so much, and let's get into today's episode. We're going to talk about small business, internet, social media, and firing people.
This is the small business podcast that is sweeter than all the rest. Marketing, media, and cupcakes.
Welcome to episode 67 of Marketing Me and Cupcakes. I'm John Ondo. Along with me is my beautiful wife, Angel.
Hi there.
She has a cupcake business side hustle, and she's a customer service expert. I am a filmmaker and a media influencer, and we do podcasts and all kinds of fun stuff. We're even doing some political stuff, but I don't think I'm not allowed. I don't know.
Don't talk about it.
I can't talk about that.
Nope.
But
Disclosure agreement.
it's a lot of fun. Anyway, I love politics, and even this.
Yes, he does.
This trash can dumpster fire year we're having.
He still loves it.
Well, I mean, listen, if you go and look at history and look at let's look at Hamilton, the Aaron Burr thing and all that. And, and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and all that classic history. You just sit back and like, boy, that would be fun. There's going to be, and listen, I'm just telling you, if you're like, I'm in my 50s, early 50s, and if you're young, if you're in your 30s or 20s, you are going to be asked by your grandkids, tell me about that 2020 year.
Yep.
Tell me about the year when the apocalypse happened.
Yep.
And that's why I literally should be documenting more of it, because It's just like when I asked my dad about World War II or the Kennedy assassination or any of those things. You kind of, someday you are going to be asked by somebody, the 2020 blah, 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 tell us about it. And you want to be able to remember. Of course, you'll go on your phone and start swiping through the pictures. Here's a plane I was on, and
here's a lovely breakfast.
Here's a breakfast. This is what I have for breakfast. Anyway, we love comedians too. So anyway,
who do we have today?
Today, Rachel Alvarez is back with us.
Yay!
And this is the reason she's back with us. Why are people losing their jobs? Because they post things on social media.
Yes.
Now, as business owners, we sit back and say, I know why, because you said something against my business and I have the right to fire you. But do you? And what?
Yes.
And what is the proper procedure, paperwork you need to have in place
as a small business?
Because it happens. You have an employee, someday you may have to fire them. So are you legally protected from that person if they go and they post something like, I hate this business, I was just canned? There are legal ramifications in some cases for that. Mm-hmm. What if you have a restaurant and you've got employees taking pictures of the kitchen and there's violations? That is an issue. Or you have a daycare. So we're going to talk about this, Rachel, because there is a balance there too, because you don't want to be like, don't ever get your phone out in every business. Some businesses, I think it's very beneficial to have your staff doing fun and marketing and things like that. So we're going to talk with Rachel about, she's going to give us some great tips. And so if you're a small business owner, get some paper out. Unless you're driving, then don't do that. And we're going to talk about small business, internet, social media, and firing people. I'm an American. I believe in the First Amendment, free press, freedom of speech.
Amen.
Yeah, and I see social media as an extension of that. But yeah, now I see people who are getting fired for saying things on social media. So what do we do when we don't have an answer? We get an attorney.
Dun dun dun.
Rachel Alvarez, attorney at law. Bum bum bum.
Oh, we need the Law and Order thing. Dun dun.
The Law and Order. Ching ching. Well, Rachel joins us from beautiful Winter Park, Florida, right outside of Orlando. It's a beautiful city. I advise you to go down there and see it if you haven't been there. Rachel, how you doing?
I am doing well.
We've known Rachel for several years, and she's awesome. And thought this would be a good topic because I know you've done some other podcasts on this topic. And this is my struggle. And as a business person, I would be frustrated if I had an employee making just really ridiculously insane remarks on social media, or, stuff that I would just completely disagree with, or maybe it comes against that if my clients would see it, would be like, I'm not using your company because I see an employee doing that. So I understand that part. But on the second side, I'm like, well, don't we live in a free country that we can do whatever we want? So how's it work, Rachel? Do businesses have the right to say, no, you cannot post certain things?
Absolutely. I mean, even social media platforms do that. They do their quote unquote fact checking, and they'll say, you can't say that because it's against our community standards. Although they don't tell you what the community standard really is that you violated, they go ahead and they'll take your post down, take your video down, take your comment down. They'll do all types of things. So they do have a right to do that because that's a private platform. So the same thing is true for employers and employees. As part of a condition to employment, your employer can limit what you do and do not say on your social media platform. Oftentimes, if it has anything to do with the actual business, you probably don't want to say anything that is disparaging, controversial, or even against the company policy.
I don't think that's a complete surprise that, you can't post negatively and say, hey, my boss, John Ondo, is a complete moron.
But here's my question from the legality perspective. So if I am... Well, I guess it depends on the state and the laws within your state. If you are an at-will employer and all that other fun jazz that I know enough because I watch too much TV. So if I've not signed an agreement and I am employed with, I'm going to say widget, John loves widgets. So Widget World. Sorry, Widget World, if you exist. And I work for them and I am not happy with things, whatever. And I post something about Widget World, but I've not signed a document. What are the laws that say they can come after me?
So what's the obligations on the employer, I guess, to notify people?
So there's this beautiful legal term of art called the standard of practice. And what that means is whatever in that particular industry would be acceptable. The other thing is that everybody gets employee handbooks, right? And somewhere in that employee handbook, there's going to be a catch-all phrase that's going to be able to substantiate the claim that your employer is making.
Okay, gotcha.
So typically,
the lovely loophole.
Yeah, it's like they have lawyers working for them, and we know how to word things to make it so ambiguous. And then we tell it. This is the other caveat that we do, and it's funny because I read it when other lawyers write me letters, for opposing sides, and they're like, well, it's vague, but it's into the favor of my client. And I'm like, obviously it is, because you're a big corporation and you want to be able to dictate what you can and cannot say. So there's going to be language somewhere in that employee manual, the policies, the standard of procedures, or even in that industry that you're supposed to uphold a level of professionalism or ethics, or even monitor what you say.
We've seen the videos, assuming they were legitimate, but the videos of people who worked at fast food restaurants that were showing that they were doing things to the food and stuff like that. Obviously, they should be fired because they're doing something wrong with the food. It's not even posting on the social media. It's just you just gave us the evidence. But before we get into those kind of things that we want to talk about, one of the things I have with my business is, I'm a 1099 on a lot of folks. I'm an independent contractor with a lot of clients. I occasionally bring in independent contractors to assist me. So they're not getting the policy handbook. I'm like, hey, are you available for this gig? They come out on the gig. Is there a line that, I can't obviously say to them, hey, don't post anything, because you're not technically my employer, correct?
Well, it depends. Do you have a good lawyer working for you?
Well, you're in Florida, so I can't do that.
You can have a confidentiality agreement with people when you work with them, and you can tell them you can or cannot say certain things. And when you have the confidentiality agreement, you can specifically tell them, you can't tell anybody what happens in my business. You can't talk about my business. Everything that is conducted while you're doing my work, even as an independent contractor, is confidential. So you can have that in place and be able to limit. The other thing we have to look at is what are you posting or what are you saying? Is it detrimental to that business or that person? Because then there's this whole like defamation of character that we run into, where somebody can sue you for saying things that are disparaging of their reputation, their product, their food, whatever it is that they have. If you're disparaging them, then they can sue you civilly for defamation of character. Now I lost profits, I lost income because of what you said to people. And the only defense to defamation in its entirety is that if it's true. You know, if you're cooking food and you're putting poison in it, and they're like, hey, this person puts poison in it, and it's actually true, guess what?
It's like you're a whistleblower at that point, and you're,
right.
and you're solving the problem. Okay, so so I think it's fairly common sense. Now, I'm sure some people would say, okay, yeah, I can't work for ABC business and post that ABC and my boss sucks, and you're probably going to get fired or at least a warning. What are some of the other things people don't realize, Rachel, or maybe a small business owner, that I do have options and, you know, with these things? Because, you know, obviously there's proprietary things with some of these businesses. So they do a selfie and there's a proprietary machine behind them that they're not supposed to see. What are some of the other things that we can get into that as a business owner I need to think, this is one of the reasons I need to tell employees and contractors, you can't do this stuff?
Well, I think ultimately what you have to do is if you have anything that's copyrighted, and then, you know, because if copyright, they have certain laws that protect those particular things, you know, logos and things of that nature. So if it's copyrighted, they have to give credit. That's why you'll hear a lot of people saying, I don't own the rights to this music. Because they don't have the copyright to actually use the music. So whenever the same thing can be true for copyrighted material, they have to be able to disclose that that's something that's copyrighted. But again, as an employer or as a contractor, you can put provisions together, confidentiality, violation, divulging, confidential information. Like there's so many things that you can put into place that will address that issue. If they violate it, you can put penalties in the contract, depending on what state you're in, of course. And you can also put that would be cause for termination or breach of contract, breach of employment agreement, breach of the standard of practice, breach of the, policies and procedures. Like there's so many things that you can encompass that. But I think what people have to ultimately remember is it worth losing your job to post it? Is it something that's going to create controversy? Is it going to create harm? Is it going to do something that's going to be detrimental to a group of people? Because if that's the case, you always have the potential of having what they call backlash, Right. And there's also legal ramifications to those actions as well.
If you're a vice president, CEO, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful about what you say versus maybe a part-time employee.
So technically speaking, if you're a CEO or a COO, there's different names, but anytime you're in a position that's an executive power, you have then attached to you, for the most part, I have never seen a company not do this, but you have fiduciary duties to that employer, to that corporation, to that company. Your fiduciary duties is a duty of loyalty, of honesty, and also to do anything to preserve that corporation and that company. So as a CEO, you're held to a higher standard because you speak as an executive of that business. So
an official voice of the company.
Or liability. Now, if I'm somebody at the lower level where I just answer phones and distribute calls, or if I'm not the CEO and not an executive or managerial position, then at that point, there may be ramifications because it just might be against company policy altogether, and you can be fired just as easily. However, the ramifications of that individual having an impact on the company versus a CEO having an impact on the company, the scheme of things is just a lot greater when you're a CEO and you're in that executive position.
Sure.
It's really easy to say, we don't want anybody posting about our business, or we don't want anybody posting. And it's like there are creative ways to market through viral grassroots level social media. And so I want to caution people. It's like, well, I'm going to go to my staff now and shut down everything. I was like, no, that's worst case scenario. You have somebody who's, putting up really vulgar language or inappropriate content. Yeah, you got to deal with that. But there's opportunities for you to have people who are doing a great job showing the staff meeting, being creative and hashtagging it. This is a great place to work. So I want to caution, those of you, just don't clamp down just because you think everybody's evil and they're going to do bad things. If you trust your staff and you've got good ideas, this can be a plus for you marketing. But I think the thing we honestly say here is know that someone is watching your social media and there's ramifications on your job if you're not doing it properly. Is that fair to say? Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
I think you're smart at what you do if you educate your employees and your staff how to actually use social media to the benefit of the company, then I think that that's beneficial. However, from the lawyer side, the lawyer in me, there's certain types of things that you want to avoid. Like, let's say, for instance, you own a daycare. You don't want all your employees to be using their own cameras to take pictures of the children, even though there's no ill will or ill intention. You don't want them to use their personal phones to take those pictures and upload them to your social media or anything of that nature. Because first, it's not your property, one, because it's in their individual phones. Secondly, I'm not saying that there are always, 100% good people, but every once in a while you'll run into somebody who may be associated or may be into some things that we shouldn't be into. Mm-hmm. And use those images of those children to do things that are inappropriate or frowned upon or are mockery to the child or abusive to the child. And
it's a huge security risk.
You run that risk. So I always advise, like when it comes to daycares, have a designated tablet or camera for the company, because those are your images and only you have control and possession over them. And also make it a policy that they can't take pictures of the children in the daycare, because you don't want somebody to say, hey, you have a picture of my child and you post it on your personal social media, and then they come after you as a daycare when you didn't have any knowledge of it. As long as you have those policies in place, I think those are good things to have. But there are certain type of things that you cannot post on social media, such as an attorney. I can't go around taking pictures of my clients and putting it on social media and saying, hi, I represent this client. This is what's going on. Like, there's a violation of the attorney-client privilege on that end.
Well, yeah. Probably the same thing with doctors. Hey, I'm treating this person for, ED or something. Yeah, exactly. You can't do that. That's bad.
Right. So you don't want to come out and say, I am representing so-and-so, the famous whatever, in their blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well,
as much as you want to. You can't.
So basically, to understand this from a constitutional standpoint, if I can go that far, free speech is valid when you go out in a public place. We've always heard the, screaming fire at a theater does not count as free speech.
No.
So obviously, when we look at social media platforms, they are not public. Technically, they're not public platforms, are they? They are private, and they are to the whims of those people.
There.
Is that right? Is that right?
Nice way of putting it. Yes. What happens is, everybody talks about a particular social media platform.
Yep.
And they say, oh, they're censoring us. They're getting rid of the violating the constitutional right. Well, as a private entity, I have a right to limit what I want. You're a member of my group, my platform, and I tell you what you can and cannot post. So when people get all upset about the social media, is it something that we should frown upon? Absolutely. But is it something that they're actually violating the First Amendment right? Yeah. Absolutely not, because they're a private entity. The moment you become a public forum, and it's like a government website, it's you notice that most social media has not one governmental organization has one up for the most part.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons for that. But whenever it's something that's ran by the government, that's when we start looking at the constitutionality of it, all that stuff. We start looking at the laws. There's certain things that can be said and certain things that can't be said, obviously. Like screaming, there's a fire. There's a reason for that, because then now you put people in peril, and there's a lot of.
Well, and
so do you think perhaps that the intention of, if we look at the age of the document we are speaking of, the Constitution being that document, speech to me sometimes is literally me talking, not so much writing or posting as it is in today. So I think that's where some people need to, is like, I can say, quote, what I want out loud, but to write it down makes it changes it. Do you feel that way? Do you see where I'm flowing?
No, it's actually a very valid point. And I think a lot of people do see it that way. However, there's been a lot of cases, constitutional cases, that have been litigated and gone to the Supreme Court, where they create all-inclusive language to include other forms other than just the speech itself.
Okay.
That's why the media, they're like, oh, they're censoring the media. And then you have the other party that says, well, they're just saying fake news, everybody's got an opinion. But why does that information get disseminated is because it's still protected for the most part. It's still protected under the Constitution. Like, you have different, interpretations of that. And that's what the Supreme Court does. It does look at the whole document, the Constitution in itself. That's why now that we're seeing more information about the Supreme Court justices and what they actually do, a lot of it has to deal with the Constitution, because they interpret the laws, whether or not it's violation of the Constitution. Do they have a legal right to do these things? And they don't hear just every case. The cases that they brought to them have to deal with a constitutional issue in itself. So that's why we start seeing that there's a lot of interpretations of what the constitutional meant and means, and that the meaning behind it as well. So I think that it's important. Yes, I agree with you. On its face, it looks that way. But as it started evolving, and we started evolving in general, we started seeing that the Supreme Court of the land decided, okay, well, this is also included, and this is under that umbrella. And they did an extension, and they kind of interpreted a little bit more broadly than what we originally saw.
So the real quick thing I want to get into real quickly as we close here, Rachel, is if I'm a small business, what are some good things? Are there good places I can find the legalese documentation online so I could have my employees all sign I promise not to post that I suck on social media? Or what is the proper, how can I, as a small business who's just trying to survive, what do I do to get this taken care of?
Well, there's different ways of doing it. I would say at the very least have a policy issued for your employees and have them sign off that they've read on that policy. And you can create your own policy about social media for your business whenever it's associated with you, whenever it's associated with the employer, when it has to do with on the location, with pictures of the actual location where you have your business. There's a lot of things that you can put into place that you don't necessarily need a lawyer to do. But I would think that it's a good standard of practice to have an outline, like this is what we allow and this is what we don't allow. Right. And that you have them sign off on it so that they're aware that it could be cause for termination. Now, if you want to go into more of, let's say you appoint managers and you have managerial positions, then that's when you want to get into the confidentiality, fiduciary duties, like what you are allowed to do as an employee. Like there's certain businesses, for instance, bankers. They can't just go around saying all the things that they want to do. They can't post about their clients. They can't do certain things because it violates a lot of their confidentiality agreements that they have in place. The other thing is if you're in a profession such as a lawyer, a doctor, a judge, these are type of things that they teach you in the code of ethics. You just can't say certain things that are unethical, blatant lies. You can't harass people online. Like you just can't do that. Although there's a lot of attorneys that are losing their licenses in the state of Florida because of emails that they send because they're angry, or because of posts that they're making, or even judges are contacting parties that they're presiding over their cases. They're contacting them, and you're not supposed to have communication in private.
What's that word? Ex parte?
Yeah.
Is that the word?
It's ridiculous.
Yes, I knew it. This is what you learn from Law and Order.
I was just going to say, any good Law and Order person would know you're not.
I would just like that.
Conversation.
I've always wanted just to say that in conversation. Somebody like, blah blah blah. The Reds lost today. That's ex parte. It just sounds so impressive. Anyway,
I'll use vis-a-vis.
Well, this is great, Rachel, and obviously, I think it comes down to, and of course, we say this, just use your common sense. But as we all know,
not everybody has it.
Not everybody has it, and I don't think you want to lose your business because you hired someone who just thought it was really cute to take pictures of the kids in the nursery school. And this really goes for churches and nonprofits, and you're working with help, and you're trying to help people, and then somebody makes an innocent mistake. Mm-hmm. And then
with no malicious intent.
And then what you think? Oh, well, it'll be okay. We'll just take it. No, and then you find out that it's a child of a divorce, and the other parent finds out, and then it all just goes down. Sideways. So it's unfortunate that we live in this world, but so just be careful. Don't be afraid of putting stuff on social media, but just make sure it's the right stuff and that you have some. This is why hiring practices are so important. And if you are not checking the social media of your employees before you hire them, to me, it's like if you just figure this out that you've got an employee posting, drunk, naked pictures. Well, you should have figured that out before you hired him. But, you check before you go in. We were having this discussion with the kids the other day.
Yeah.
Make sure your social media is appropriate because, if anything, I think if it's halfway decent, you're going to get hired because they're going to be so thrilled that you're not out there doing dumb things. So anyway,
if you skip work and post yourself at a bar during work hours and you called in sick, you probably don't want to do that either. A lot of people have gotten in trouble for posting pictures of things that they're doing when they've called in sick. They've said they're in the hospital. There's so many things that they've done and that shouldn't do. So I think when we start thinking about posting on our social media platform, make sure you haven't told a bunch of lies to your employer. So if they check your social media, they don't find you at the beach instead of at home sick with a cold or the flu.
Or that the previous 3 employers you've had, you say they suck and I hate them, and then I'm not gonna hire anybody who does that.
Right.
So the days of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he went to the Cubs game and he went to the restaurant and he did the parade, couldn't really happen now because unfortunately
Ferris wouldn't be able to help himself. He'd be taping every single bit of it.
Every single person would also tape him. So it's sad that we can't go back to those times. No. Maybe someday we'll outlaw cell phones.
Maybe.
Anyway, well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. You're awesome.
Thank you so much.
What's your website? Tell us where we can find out more if you're in the Orlando area and you're looking for somebody who just knows things about legal stuff.
So my website is www.rachelalvarez.com, or you can email me at rma@rachelalvarez.com.
So again, Rachel Alvarez has blown our mind. This is what you need to understand about Angel and I, and this is kind of shocking because I've watched Law and Order my whole life.
Oh, so have I.
You watch
it, and I rewatch it.
You watch it continuously, and I've kind of backed off. And
it is literally his Star Trek, his Star Trek that he watches and knows. I watch Law and Order.
But I love Law and Order. I love Sam Waterston. I love Lenny.
I love the sound.
I love it's a great show. So legal stuff is a lot of fun, but yeah, I could tell talking with Rachel, you were like, it's like a rock concert for you.
It just I never could have become an attorney. I took one business law class when I took my lovely business classes back in the day at OSU.
OH.
And IO, and I just remember loving it and loving the information. I just couldn't retain it all.
Yeah.
And back then at that time, I was not argumentative, nor do I like conflict. I still am not.
You would have been a lousy lawyer.
I'm still not a fan of conflict.
But you make a great cupcake.
But as I've aged, I think right now I could definitely be a much better attorney. Because something happens as you age. You stop caring about what you say.
And you think you're right. And I've always loved debate and law.
Yes, he loves that.
And if there was a way that maybe I should create this, and now I'll say it on the podcast, and somebody else won't get the money. But if you could create a simulation of the Supreme Court and go and argue cases,
John would be all about it.
You get paid like $500. You go in, you bring your research, and then you get somebody else who will oppose you on the other side, and you could argue a case. And just for fun, and maybe they give you a real ruling or something. It's
John would love that.
It's like Judge Wapner, but it's like the real thing. You're not like arguing over who set your trailer on fire. It's actually like, let's debate free speech and something else.
Let's debate free speech on the internet.
That's what we just talked about.
I know, that's my point. How cool would that be?
That would be cool. So anyway, enough of our ramblings. Thank you, Rachel, for being on today. And we're going to, again, encourage you, share us, like us. We're on all the podcast platforms, and we're also on Instagram and Facebook. Please follow us there. Keep up to date with the new episodes. And we are going to be doing a lot of great guests in the next few weeks, and we're going to have a few things too. And we will talk about food. We're going to have some other people on to talk about food, because I feel bad that we are marketing and media cupcakes, and we haven't had a chance to really talk about food stuff lately.
It's okay.
So no, it's not. We need to talk about food. So we already discussed the Italian stuff a couple of days ago. So we'll get into that. So anyway, wherever you are today, be careful with your business. Be smart about the people you hire. Check their social media and keep living the dream.
Connect with John and Angel via Facebook and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts. Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes is a production of Ondo Media.